And welcome back to the channel. I am Brant. This is Only Good Comics, and I'm going to talk to you about only good comics. So this time we are talking about The Vigil, issues 1 through 4. This is a 6 issue miniseries, so I may do another video when it wraps up if I still feel the same way. But I did want to talk about this book because I feel like it's a book that's very under the radar, and it was a little bit of a slow build, but we're going to talk about this. So this is written by Ram V with art by Lalit Sharma, and we are 4 issues in. Issue 4 just came out. We got 2 more to go, and this is one of those series that debuted in like one of those little short previews, and then like with I think it was City Boy and was it Spirit World or some, I can't remember the other book, but it was one of those, a handful of books that they previewed in a book, and then those 3 series came out. They're a little mini series or whatever. But this one kind of fell under the radar, I feel like, and I know us on Comic Book Weekly, Kat and Mike, they weren't feeling it, and I was kind of iffy on it. But there was something about it, something about this concept, this book, these characters that just connected with me. And I don't know, I couldn't put my finger on it until issue 4, and that's kind of why I decided to do that video this video this week. And so basically, this is another superhero team in the DC universe. Their first tangle, they're doing this rescue mission, and they interact with Nightwing, and he's like, I'm going to keep my eye on you, and they're doing this whole thing. But these are characters, brand new characters. We don't know anything about them. One of them's name's Arclight. I don't even remember what all the characters' names are, because it's each issue. It's kind of been given a little bit of a backstory on each one of the characters, and basically, they've all come together as a team because there's this character, this mentor, this professor that has worked in the government, but he's kind of thought as an afterthought in the government, and he's kind of ousted, and he's put together this team to go out and save people. But they have this different way that they go about it. Like, they complete their objective, but then they just leave everybody to fend for themselves. It's not like they're altruistic or anything. They have a mission, they meet the parameters of that mission, then they move on. It doesn't matter. They're not like Suicide Squad, but they're not like a superhero team either. They're not concerned with the safety of everyone around. They're just concerned with completing the mission and doing whatever it needs to be done. And then you're introduced to this other character, this woman that comes in, that's kind of observing everyone and trying to get to know everyone, and deciding whether she wants to be a part of this whole operation. And at first, it's just like, okay, it's just a bunch of characters brought together. Don't know why they're there. There's a little bit of mystery behind it because their professor seems a little shady. You don't know a whole lot about him yet. But I don't know. Visually, all the characters look pretty cool. One guy has this mask that when he puts it on, he can change into anybody. And I think it's issue 3 that kind of focuses on him a little bit, and shows him like using this to hook up with some people, and have a little fun or whatever, blow off some steam and that kind of thing. And I'll show some preview pages as I'm talking here, but like, this is one of the characters as well. I'll kind of zoom in and move around here. This one has a military background. This is Arclight, and we get to see him as we see the credits there for the first issue, or I think this might be issue 2. It's kind of focusing on Arclight. Like I said, each issue focuses on different characters and some of their backgrounds. This is the guy with the mask. This is from the next issue, I think, and this is what I was talking about. He was assuming somebody else's identity. You can see the shift here as he puts the mask. Actually, it's when he takes the mask off that he's malleable, I guess, and becomes somebody else. So, and then you have the girl here who is very strong and very quick, and is kind of not thought of as much by everyone around her because she's been holding back her whole life. And that's kind of the story in the latest issue 4, as we see some really great art here. And we've got different artists throughout. I did mention Lalit, but obviously Devmalya, Pramanik, I'm totally butchering these names, but is the artist on this one. Some really cool action scenes and things like that, and some flashbacks and stuff. So, some really cool art and backstory for each one of these characters as we learn about them. But the interesting thing that is pulling it all together is this professor character, and they find a photo in the latest issue of him that's like from like a war decades ago, and he's still like the same age, and so even more mystery and intrigue. And it was when this issue came together and the reveal, which I'm not going to spoil here, in this issue, as to where all these characters came from and why we haven't seen them in the DC universe before. That revelation came in this issue, and it's like, oh, now I understand what it is about this book that is appealing to me, and that I like about it, and that I'm finding that connective tissue. And besides the visually cool looking characters and unique takes on familiar powers and things of that nature, was that the book overall reminded me of the original Wildcats. And you all know, you've seen my videos on Wildcats, you've heard me on Comic Book Weekly if you're a fan of that show, talk about Wildcats and talk about my connection with Wildcats. And that became abundantly clear to me as I'm reading the end of this issue and the revelations here, why I was so drawn to this book, because you have this mentor character that has a lot of history, that has a lot of mystery surrounding him, has a lot more answers than he's sharing with his team. There's obviously an ulterior motive and everything. And that's very much like Wildcats. Wildcats had Marlowe in charge of everyone, the Imp, and he had all these secrets, and he had brought together this team because he had connections with different members of this team and had researched and brought them together to serve his ulterior motive purpose throughout that book. And that came together through issues and issues of building upon that mystery. And obviously we only have 6 issues to tell this story. And so we get to that point in issue 4. And that's where they diverge, these two concepts, because the mystery behind this professor and how this team came to be and where they've been is completely different than what happened with Wildcats. And I think the reason that this one slid under the radar isn't because they're unknown characters. It's because with Wildcats, for example, you had Jim Lee, who was a superstar artist at Marvel, who left and did his own book, and that was Wildcats, right? So you had a lot of momentum, even though you didn't know any of the characters. You knew the creator, and you knew the voice behind it, the art behind it, and that kind of brought people in, and then they started, attaching to these characters, especially Grifter and Zealot, of course. But I think this book suffers from not that Rambee's not known, because he is, but because it's at DC and because there's a lot of books to read. And if you're a fan of Justice League and Superman and Batman and the Flash and stuff, and you're not getting any of that, and they tried to tie it in. They tried to, by introducing it with Nightwing, and they did that with all 3 of these books. They used some of the Batman characters to introduce City Boy and Spirit World and this one. But for whatever reason, I think this one just kind of slid under the radar of most people. But I've really enjoyed it. And like I said, this reveal has got me really curious to see how this thing's going to wrap up and what's going to happen to these characters going forward, and what this means for these characters now that they have this answer presented to them, because they just found that as well. So it's really interesting read. And I'm glad I stuck with it, because I think the payoff so far has been good for me. It was, like I said, a slow build, because you had to learn these characters from scratch, and you couldn't just get immersed into this world, because it was tied to the greater DC universe, and there were ramifications that might have to be dealt with at some point if these characters survive past this miniseries. So anyway, I think it's a pretty good book. It hasn't made my top 5 yet, but I don't know. We'll see what happens this week on Comic Book Weekly. So check us out on Tuesday night over on Comic Book Weekly or at Comic Frontline to check out my full thoughts on that. But I really enjoyed this issue, and it made me enjoy the overall series even more, and it made me excited for the 2 issues that are going to wrap this up, and see how they do that, and what this answer that they've just been given is going to do to the team and to each of the individual characters, and like what's going to happen going forward, because it's a big thing. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm enjoying it. I hope you check it out, and if you do, let me know. Leave it comment in the comments below, and let me know what you think of the book. And again, if it ends on a high note and I really enjoy it, and I'm like, okay, now I got to go get the trade for this, or just to have it on my bookshelf or whatever. If it leaves that much of an impression on me, I will do another video wrapping up all 6. If it doesn't quite live up to the hype that I'm building up to now, maybe not, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, there's a current book for you with issue 4 that just came out this week. So yeah, cool book. Check out the Vigil if you have not, and if you're a fan of Ram V, definitely check it out, because it's pretty solid writing, I think. So there you go. That's my thoughts on the Vigil issues 1 through 4 of 6 from DC Comics. Check it out, and join me next time as we talk about more Only Good Comics. You can also follow me across social media at Only Good Comics, and check me out right here on YouTube via onlygoodcomics.com. Until next time, thanks for watching. Take care and read those comics, and I'll see you Tuesday.